Hello and welcome to the series on Microsoft Power Apps. In this video, we'll be looking at the filter function and how we can use it in conjunction with the search function that we created in our previous video. So in the previous video, we created a search box and we linked it up to our gallery and we allowed our users to search for employees based on name and surname. So to extend that, we want to add a drop-down box where we can search based on department or filter based on department. So let's have a look at the Microsoft documentation. I'll include this link in the video description, but if we look at the syntax for the filter function, we have filter, table, and then your formulas that you want to add to that function. If we have a look at the search function, it's a little bit similar to our filter function, and we have the option for table, search string, and then the columns you want to search on. So we'll be using our filter function inside of our search function, and let's have a look at how we can do that. So if you're looking at our application, we don't really have much space on our top bar, so I want to move this icon here and the search box to underneath the top bar. So to do that, we first need to position our gallery how we want it so that there's enough space, and then we can move our icon. Notice that the icon has a white text, so to change that we need to select the color of the icon in our Property Explorer and set it to template header bar, and that will change it to the same color as our top bar. Let's drag and move our search box to above the first employee icon, and let's select under insert, we can select icons and we can add a filter icon, and again we can move this icon to where we want. And if we select the color of the icon in the Property Explorer, we can also remove the RGBA value and type template header bar, and that will set the color to the color that we have in our template. So in a previous video, we created our templates, and this is the template screen, and those values from those and those properties are coming from the template. Let's insert our drop-down. So if you go to Insert and you select the input, and under Input you see we'll have a drop-down. This will add a drop-down box to our application. And the first thing that I want to do is rename this. So let's rename the drop-down to Department drop-down. So you can give that any name that you want. I'll just leave it at Department drop-down. And let's go into the properties of the drop-down. And I would like to change this. If you press the Alt key down, you can see the chevron icon has a blue color that I don't really like. So I will be changing that color. And if you go into the properties and you scroll down, we have chevron color. And if you select the color, you can add a custom color. In my case, I'll be removing that color and I'll be adding BAE 1F2. And that is the same color that we have in our top bar. So if we go back to our properties, you can see if we click on Alt and we select the drop down, it's got a value of 1, 2, and 3. Those are the incorrect values because we want to be getting the values from our SharePoint site. So if we go over to our SharePoint site, we want to list the values that we have in our choice field for department. So if we go to back to our application, we select the drop down, we go to Advanced Settings, and in Advanced Settings, we have an option if you select items. You could also select items in the items list at the top here, and we need to remove that value that it has there by default, and we hit type in their choice or choices, open close bracket, and inside the brackets we need to type employee because it's coming from our employee data source. If we select employees and we type dot and you select department, and if we click outside of the formula bar, you see now we have departments listed in our drop down. So if we hold down the Alt key and we click on the drop down, you can see we've got HR, sales, marketing, and IT. So we need to have a default value. Currently it's selecting HR, so if we're using that as a filter, it's going to only filter the items from HR by default. So we need to go back into our SharePoint site, and if you click on the cogwheel for your employees list, and you go to list settings, and you scroll down, and under list settings you will have an option for department. And this is a choice field, so we can select the first item and put a return next to it, and we can enter here a default value. So I'm going to add a default value of none. You can call it default, or you can give it another name if you want. It doesn't really matter. Let's select OK. And if we go back to our employees application, we can need to go to our data sources. And if you click on data source and you click on refresh, you can see now, if we hold the Alt key down, none is the first item in our list. Great, so now we've got the layout of our application set up how we want it, or let's actually just move this down. And now what we need to do, we need to add the functionality when the user selects the required department to display the items in the gallery. So to do that, we need to select our gallery. And you can see we have the values from the previous video where we added the search function, and we're searching based on employees. That's our data source, our SharePoint table, our employees search.text, so that is the text value here, and then we have name and we have surname. So I'm going to copy those values, and I will delete all the other information from in between these search brackets. So what we need to do is we need to chain the functions. So we're first going to have our search function, and inside our search function, we're going to have our filter function. So if we type filter, open close brackets, and inside those brackets, we need to type our data source, which is employees. And if we select it from the drop down, we go to comma, and now we need to do our validation. So we need to check for condition. If a value of this drop down is set to HR or set to department, it needs to display values over here. If it's set to none, it should show all employees. You can do that with an if statement. So let's include an if, open and close brackets, and we will type department. It's always best to select it from the drop down because you might have a spelling mistake. So department.value equals department drop down dot selected text dot value. And then we need to say comma true. So basically what that says, it validates from our data source if the value on the drop down is set over here to HR department or to any of those values, it will set to true. And if it's not, then we need to put in the other condition that will be if that is false. So in here next to true, we also need to put in another comma, and we need to say department drop down. And what we can do, we're running out of space there, so if you click on the drop down, you can see we have a little bit more a screen to enter our information in there. So selected text dot value equals none. So that is the value that we added recently to updating our choice list. And then outside of this is where we would have our normal if state, our normal search function. So we need to say comma, and then we can paste our values that we had from previously. So employee search dot text, name and surname. Let's click on the arrow here, and if we go back to our application, you can see we've got the two fields over here, one for searching based on employee name and one for filtering based on department. Notice that we do have a warning over here. So if you click on the drop down, you can say get help for this warning. And basically what this is saying is that we have a limited number of records that we can use for this. So basically if we have too many rows in our SharePoint database or SharePoint table, it might have performance issues. This is okay for our application. When working with SharePoint lists and SharePoint in general, there are a number of limitations you need to consider. So, but for our application, I think this should be more than sufficient. So if we click on the play button or F5, we can start our application up. Let's first do the search. So if we type for employees with an E in their name or in their surname or an ER, it will display all of those employees matching that search criteria. So ERICH for Eric. Let's try it with his surname. So Morrison. And you can see our search field is working. Let's remove his name. And let's try and filter on departments. So by default, it's going to show all departments. And you can see over here in the drop down, we have none set as default. And if we set it to HR, it updates it. You don't really see it because Eric was part of the HR department. But if we scroll down, you can see all of the HR employees. Let's go all the way to the top. And if we change it to sales, you can see our employees change. So let's also test if our search works with in conjunction with the filter. So if we type this employee's name over here, so Cato Doyle, so Doyle, and you can see it's only displaying employees with the name starting or name or surname with as Doyle, or in Department of Sales. If we select that to none, I'm thinking we only have one employee with that surname, but if we remove the text and have DO, you can see we have two employees with that text sequence in their name. So we have Cato Doyle and Armando Duran. So you can see DO and DO for Cato. Great, let's go back to our home screen. We can close that and go back to our employees application. So what we've done, we've added a filter based on our SharePoint data source, and we have added a search field that's also based on our searching our employees based on their name and surname that's coming from our SharePoint data source. Great. So I think in the last couple of videos, we've done quite a lot for our employee screen or our employee list that will display all of our employees. And I think we're ready to move on to the employees detail screen, and we will start filling that out. So when you click on an employee, it will redirect you to the employees detail screen, and it will be showing you their information. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.